This is a Bees and Reverie Radio News Short. I'm Emily Wayland, recording this on the evening of January 30th, 2025. Every year, the Western Monarch population is counted down at the overwintering sites along the California coast down to Upper Baja, Mexico. These overwintering sites are slated to become critical habitat should the proposal for the monarch butterfly to be listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act become law later this year. The Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation helps monitor the population of the Western monarchs at these overwintering sites and reports a final count from the winter every year. On Thursday, January 30th, 2025, I attended a webinar where they announced the final 2024 Monarch Western count, and this is what I learned. Now, prior to the meeting, the Xerces Society released their official press release on the matter. It read, "Following efforts by hundreds of volunteers and partners to count overwintering monarch butterflies in California, the 28th annual Western Monarch Count has reported a peak population of just 9,119 butterflies this winter. This is the second lowest overwintering population ever recorded since tracking began in 1997 and coincides with monarch butterflies being proposed for protection under the U.S. Endangered Species Act. It is important to note that this is a 90% decline from last year, so winter of 2023. And this number is a sharp decline from the past 3 years when more than 200,000 overwintering Western monarchs were observed each year. It is only slightly above the all-time low of less than 2,000 monarchs in 2020 and well below the millions of monarch butterflies observed in the 1980s that scientists considered a stable population level. The Xerces Society first started this count in 1997. The organization that they partner with is known as the Western Monarch Count. And they do the surveys at the same time each year, have 3 official monitoring periods where volunteers count butterflies at the overwintering sites in Southern California. So last year, they conducted counts between October 19th and November 3rd at 202 sites for a count of 7,601 butterflies. The mid-season numbers, which were counted between November 16th and December 8th of 2024 at 257 sites, gives us that number of 9,119. Now, the mid-season count is what is used for the overall population, as arrival and departure from these overwintering sites may be staggered. And monarchs can, of course, suffer from natural events and predation. And then the late season count was conducted December 28th of 2024 through January 12th, 2025, where 5,200 monarchs were reported, although that final count is still being vetted, and the monarchs are going to begin to leave the overwintering areas early February. So, what caused this? As far as the Xerces Society and partners know, we had record heat waves in 2024. This trended across the country, but was especially rough on the western United States. This resulted in a decrease in breeding and survival. It is important to note that the past 10 Julys were the warmest on record, which indicates the effects of climate change. Second of all, and another effect of the record heat waves, is drought. This affects the milkweed and nectar quality and availability. And then lastly, we always have natural population fluctuation. Now, these fluctuations are perfectly normal. This can happen from natural conditions that affect food and breeding, but small populations of invertebrates like the monarch are very vulnerable. Now, the key regions and sites where these butterflies were counted in California, Santa Cruz County was the top county, accounting for 45% of total population. The top 5 sites where monarchs were counted were Lighthouse Field State Park with 1,406 butterflies, Natural Bridges State Park with 1,400 butterflies, Moran Lake with 645 butterflies, Pismo Beach Monarch Grove with 556 butterflies, and then Sky West Golf Course with 477 total butterflies. Of course, there are other sites that were included in the count, but those are the ones that were most abundant with monarch population. Now, during this meeting, the Xerces Society also discussed the Endangered Species Act proposal. They went into the background and how we got to this point, And we are going to be discussing that on our upcoming episode this week, Thursday, February 6th. It is also important to note that the California Department of Fish and Wildlife and other state regulations still apply when handling monarchs. You cannot handle monarchs in California without a permit for scientific purposes. They recognized that pesticides were not addressed but identified as a key threat, and that the service was asking for public comment on how to address this. And the proposed critical habitat for a subset of California overwintering sites included 62 sites, including Pismo, Natural Bridges, Lighthouse Field, and Pacific Grove. 4 of the top 5 sites from this past winter are included in those protections of approximately 5,000 acres. Now, this critical habitat rule would not change access or land ownership rights, but is an extra layer of legal protection. The Xerces Society also crafted a sign-on letter, which I will link below in the show notes. It is basically a quick form where you can support federal protections for the butterfly, and Xerces will include your name in their letter that they are submitting during this free public comment period lasting until March 12th. They did note that the recent fires near the Palisades did affect the overwintering sites near Los Angeles by Lower Topanga Canyon. The monarch count was done the week prior to the fire, but no monarchs were found. Overwinterers may not have been affected by these fires. Now, you can access the press release at xerces.org, and I have provided a direct link in the show notes. You will also be able to watch the presentation of this meeting at westernmonarchcount.org within a week or so. Stay tuned for the Eastern population count. We should have updates on that in late February, according to Monarch Watch, as well as 2 upcoming episodes on the monarch butterfly and this Endangered Species Act proposal. You can leave a comment if you would like with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service before the March 12th deadline. You can always reach out to us at beesandreveryradio@gmail.com if you have questions about the public comment period. Lots of monarch conservation organizations will also have resources like the Xerces Society letter that you can sign on to. Thanks for listening to Bees and Reverie Radio, and remember to plant native to save the monarchs and other pollinators.